Okay. Scott, you're up.
Welcome, everyone, to the January 10th meeting of the Montgomery County Planning Commission. The first item on our agenda is for reorganization of board, and actually public comments are listed. We're going to do public comments after reorganization. So I'll open it up for nominations for chair.
Make a motion that we nominate Stephen Klein for chair of the Montgomery County Planning Commission.
Second.
Scott.
Okay. And should we have the vote then?
After any other nominations?
Yeah, any other nominations? Hearing none, all in favor of Stephen Klein as chair?
Aye.
Any opposed? Yes.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thanks to all my fellow board members. Appreciate that. And so next order of business is to elect a vice chair. Do I have a motion for vice chair?
I'll make a motion for Dulcie.
I'll second that motion. Are there any other nominations for vice chair? Being none, we'll close nominations. All those in favor of Dulcie to be vice chair, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Great.
Congrats.
Way to be my left hand.
I'm your wing person.
So next up is our is the County Planning Commission's secretary. Make a motion to nominate Scott France as the secretary for the Planning Commission.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any other nominations? Seeing none, all those in favor? Say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, we do have our officers for the 2024 year elected. Before we continue with the rest of the board meeting, this past week we lost a giant to the Planning Commission and a great example of somebody who dedicated to community service in the county. Charlie Turnetta, who served on the Planning Commission for more than 50 years and retired from the Planning Commission a little over a year ago. And he passed away, I don't know the exact date, but that doesn't matter, in the last week or so. So if we could all stand and for a moment of silence for Charlie Turnetta. Thank you. So with that, we'll start with public comment. Is there any public comment or staff comment before we get started with any other agenda item? Any public comment in the room? Online. Oh, it is? And I understand that Commissioner, newly sworn in Commissioner DeBello is with us online. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. Just observing, just trying to learn as much as I can about what's going on.
Okay. Did you have any comments or did you want to say
No,
anything? Okay.
not at this time. I do want to echo what you said about Charlie Turnetta. He was, I've known him for many years and he was a staple in the community. And I know he was dedicated to the Planning Commission. And he did a lot of wonderful things over the years. And actually it was January 3rd when he passed away. But thank you for that recognition of Charlie. I'm sure he really appreciated it. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Well, we're glad to have you with us today. So, and we wish you luck in your elected position. And if there's anything any of us can do for you, please let us know.
Well, no, thank you very much.
So with that, is there any board comments before we get started with our agenda? Any board comments?
I have some comments.
Shoot.
So at our last board meeting, which was December 13th, we had the board collaborated with the staff on the work plan. I thought that was fantastic. I thought the staff and the session leaders that were the staff were well prepared. It was very well organized, and to those staff members who participated and organized, I wanted to give a shout out that I thought it was great. So thanks a lot. That was fantastic. The flip side to that is I'd like to do that more often. Although I find the report out that we have at the meetings to be interesting, I don't think it uses the full capabilities of the board like we did on December 13th. So I would encourage Scott and Stephen to think more about how we could engage the board more directly in the work of the planning commission. The other thing I had to say was about Charlie. I knew Charlie as a client of mine when I was a practicing attorney. And although I only worked with him on the board for a short period of time, mostly through Zoom, because that was the COVID years. I know he was a giant in terms of the community at large and the planning commission specifically. I think we should give some thought to naming or renaming an award in his honor. If the board and staff in the future thinks that that's a good idea, we should first check with the family before we announce anything publicly. But I think that would be a really good idea because, as I understand it, his 50 years on the planning commission's board was the most any citizen has served on any board in the county forever. So that should be recognized in some lasting way. And I think an award that we would give out or rename an award that we already give out would be a good idea. Thanks, Stephen.
Welcome, thank you. And great suggestion. We'll have to think about how we can do that, maybe as part of the Montgomery Awards. So, what's that?
I second Jonathan's idea. I think Charlie was a force on this board. His commitment to Norristown was without question. He collaborated with multiple commissioners on both sides of the aisle for many, many years. And we all learned from Charlie because Charlie always listened, even if he didn't agree. Charlie was civil and strong-willed, and he left a mark on all of us and the planning commission. And it would be, although he would say, no, you don't have to do that. He's a person who loved his life, enjoyed the planning commission, and just was Montgomery County through and through. So it would be a wonderful acknowledgement of all those traits to reward him for some time to come.
Yeah, agreed. So we'll have to, we have some time, but we'll definitely bring that up. And then, like Jonathan said, we should reach out to the family and see if that's something they would be willing to be a part of. Any other board comments before we get started? Okay, so the first order of business is approval of the meeting minutes. Do I have a motion to approve the Montgomery County Planning Commission regular monthly board meeting minutes of December 13th, 2023? So moved. It's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Any comments, corrections on the meeting minutes? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Our next order of business is to form our committees for the year. Each year, the Planning Commission board sits on several committees, Montco 2040 Implementation Grant Committee and the Montgomery Awards Committee, and then the Transportation Grant Program Committee. The two committees, the first one, Montco 2040 Implementation and Montgomery Awards Committee, are going to be active committees. At this point, the Transportation Grant Program is a bit up in the air as far as the budget's concerned. I will appoint members to that committee, but it will be tentative, just pending if there's going to be funding for that grant program. So with that, the formation of the Montco 2040 grant program will be myself, Bob Blue, Jonathan Rindy, and Nicole. The Montgomery Awards will be the appointments to the Montgomery Awards will be Dulcie, John Ernst, and Obed. And the transportation grant, once again, if it occurs, will be Dulcie, Obed, and Dan. Okay. And just so everybody knows, this is somewhat not done randomly. I try to map this out each year. I have a beautiful spreadsheet
Of course, very likely.
of how I put it together, so everybody gets a chance and continually switching people around into different committees, so
The elevators aren't working in case.
that's not part of the committee.
Okay, I'm just telling you.
Elevator repair.
We could have some people coming in after this.
So, so with that, that's our committee assignments. Obviously, staff will be in touch with the relevant board members as the time comes. The Montco 2040 grant program will be the first one to take off, and which should be sometime in the spring. Montgomery Awards obviously there'll be something in the summer, and then the transportation grant program is usually in the fall if it occurs. So with that, we will move on to our next agenda item, which is community planning assistance contracts. We have 5 in front of us, and I'll call on Eric to go over those contracts.
Great, thank you. Good morning, happy new year. These are the last batch of our 13 contract renewals for 2024. These are all 3-year contracts starting January 1st of this year and ending December 31st of 26. The 5 include Upper Moreland Township, which is we're going to be completing a comprehensive update of their zoning code and then auditing and updating their subdivision and land development ordinance. For Schwanksville, we'll be updating their revitalization plan and supporting a number of borough-wide trail and connectivity plans that they'll be moving forward with. For Narberth, we're in the process of an active transportation plan in cooperation with Lower Merion, and we'll be assisting them with needed updates to their subdivision and zoning ordinance. For Jenkintown, we're auditing their recent comprehensive plan implementation activities. They've done a lot of work since adoption of that a few years ago. They wanted to track what they've done and see what remains and start prioritizing continuing in future projects. For the Central Perkiomen Valley renewal, we'll be completing their comprehensive plan update. We started that mid last year, and then ongoing implementation of the multi-regional greenway and stewardship study. All of those are covered by current planners. Claire Warner will be continuing in Upper Moreland Township, John Miklos for Schwanksville Borough. Marley will be in Jenkintown Borough, although that might go to one of our new planners we're hoping to hire soon. And Tim Staub is our new Narberth planner.
Central Park.
Central Perk is me.
And you said Schwanksville was Nicholas?
Yep.
Anything else, sir?
No, just any questions?
Yeah, so let me get the resolution in. So before us, we have MCPC resolution 24.1.1, community planning assistance contract resolution of January 10th, 2024. It contains 5 contracts, contract 667, Upper Moreland Township. These will all be the same length of contract. So January 1st, 2024 to December 31st, 2026. Total cost is $95,508. Once again, split 50-50 between the county and the municipality. Contract 670, Schwanksville Borough. Total cost is $54,576. Jenkintown Borough, which is contract 671. Total cost is $75,042. Contract 672, Narberth Borough. Total cost $68,220. And contract 673, Central Perkiomen Valley Regional Planning Committee. That is total cost $88,686. And I so moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Are there any questions or comments for Eric?
I have a comment for Eric. Again, I would like to congratulate the community planning section for the work they do. I think every year when these contracts come up, it's important for us to recognize the importance and the unique position the county has as being planners for half of municipalities in Montgomery County. We recognize as county planning commission board members that the county really does not have control over land use in these 62 different municipalities. Yet we develop and promote a comprehensive plan for how communities should grow and develop. So our planning interactions with them through this program is one way that we can guide the decision-making in a thoughtful and insightful way to municipal leaders who make these decisions. And we build up relationships, we build up trust. And the communities really look to the county for guidance on so many of these issues. And when there's a conflict, we can help resolve it, which is important because we build up the trust. You can't resolve these issues unless you have trust with the people you're negotiating with. So I think we have to recognize how unique this is in southeastern Pennsylvania. And if they were going to, these communities would be hiring people outside, and contracting people can be very good, but they're not often there for the long term. We are there with both the interest of the local community, but also the interest in the county to promote the planning, good planning in these communities. So I commend you for the work that your team does. And I want us all to recognize how unique it is that Montgomery County is willing to invest in seeing their comprehensive plan and our goals for the county fulfilled through this work.
Great. Yeah, thanks. Yeah, of course, the community planners do all the work. So I just get to take credit for it all, but they do wonderful relationships with the community. But I have similar comments I'll be making when we get into the work program and summarize the program, but you said it much more eloquently.
Yeah, I'd just like to highlight two of Dulcie's points. One, when we assist these communities, we can look outside of their municipal borders to see how the planning relates to adjacent municipalities, where that municipality may not be looking quite frankly, beyond its borders, because that's not their charge. We have the ability to do that. And secondly, something that Dulcie said that I want to highlight also is by these contracts year after year, the planning commission develops an institutional memory about why things were done in that particular municipality. So as commissioners or the political leaders of each municipality may change over the years, we remain a constant to help remind them of the goal and the vision that had been put forth in their prior plans. So I think that's really important.
Any other comments? Any comment from public or staff? Online, in the room? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Great, thanks, Eric. So we won't see you anymore, right?
I don't want to, for the contracts, it'll be end of the year.
Well, we have to make room for Ann, so, you know.
We always have to
so
make room
much,
for Ann.
right? Wait, something.
Yeah, I just wanted to say thanks to all the staff members and the heads of the departments that found the time to go to Charlie Tornetta's funeral services. As someone that lost both parents within 11 months of one another, you know, to look up and see the faces of people that you know really makes an impact. So kudos to those that could make it. Those that couldn't make it, you missed a good time because, you know, his wife told me, well, I think Charlie's calling you later on this afternoon because I think you owe him something. I said, okay, I'll expect a call. So it was more of a celebration of life. I mean, there was a lot of people there, a lot of relatives, and he'll be sorely missed. There's no doubt about it. You know, we had him out. Where's Matt? We had him out at a site inspection meeting on one of the projects that we're usually working on. And also when he went to the December meeting at Meadowwood. I mean, he was a fighter, there's no doubt about it. So again, I thank, you know, on behalf of the family, because like as they say, the only guy that wants to be Italian, which I'm not. But I'll just pass the word on that the family was very thankful. So,
With that, we're gonna move on to our next agenda item, Montco 2050 workshop report. And to Jonathan's point, we're gonna get an update on what Chloe has figured out. Right, Chloe?
Oh, yeah, we solved everything now. No, I appreciate your comments earlier, Jonathan and others. And also just want to recognize that we had 100% in-person board participation for that workshop last month, which I think speaks to the board commitment, but also the board interest in that type of format. And we've heard very good comments from you and from staff It was a fun time. Thank you for participating.
The cookies were good.
The cookies, thank you.
Incentives.
I want to make sure that that's out there. Can't forget the cookies.
Can't forget the cookies. It was cookie season. Yeah. Thank you. Okay, so, when I kicked this off last month with a quick presentation, I went through all the other things we're working on and doing. I'm not going to go through all of that today. I think you know this is only a small part of a longer process that involves a lot of other things. But in December, we had staff and board discussions for 2 hours. There were 24 sessions. Then we had lunch and some more chatting. We talked about these 6 topics in different groups. Each individual person was able to go to 4 of them, except for the facilitators who went to fewer than 4. This is our staff working group. The facilitators were from this group, and we continue to meet to talk about what we're doing, where we're going, what the next steps are, what happened at this workshop, and what we're taking from that. So I'm going to go briefly through the 6 topics with a couple of interesting things, highlights. I don't need to tell you that, you know, there were 2 hours of discussion on every topic. I'm not going to be able to review every single comment right here, but we do have those. We're looking at them. They're important to us. But a couple of highlights for your, just to revisit from your comments. This one's actually maybe one of the longest ones. So we're going to go relatively quickly through these. So diversity and community discussions, several times it was brought up that there are really very, very many dimensions to diversity in terms of race, ethnic group, age, physical ability or disability, LGBTQ status, every kinds of things. And that we need to keep those all in mind really as we plan for the future of the county. And that increases in diversity are happening throughout the county in various ways, but it's more sort of pronounced in certain areas. This note that in some cases, municipal leaders, elected officials, staff may be more skewed towards longtime residents or people who have don't necessarily understand the needs or viewpoints of newer residents. There was not full agreement among the different groups on how to acknowledge sort of various types of past planning wrongs or just things that may have been bad for past or current future residents of the county. But I think there was kind of a consensus that it's good to acknowledge things kind of throughout the plan where they're relevant to whatever we're discussing. So I think we're probably good on that. We can keep talking about it though. A couple of key questions. There is an issue of distrust of government in some groups and populations, and how can we work on that as planners? How can we reach out to different groups in ways that help them feel more comfortable talking to us? And then that's related to generally thinking about what our outreach looks like and how that works. And there was lots of ideas that were shared and more discussion on that relevant. And then there were a few comments that relate to county practices, county facilities, county parks that I think were helpful to highlight. You know, saying explicitly where we can that Montgomery County is a welcoming place, put county signs at county-owned buildings and facilities in multiple languages, and consider more historical interpretation, other kinds of things, and maybe even archaeological exploration at county-owned parks. Great places. Great places offer variety. Historic main streets and newly developed places can be great places, and they need to be welcoming and safe. Questions about whether parks can be great places and what kind of parks, about preserved farms. Are those great places? Do they have to have commerce? What does that look like? And then this kind of a key one here. Do we want to develop many great places, small great places, like focus on great places everywhere? Or do we want to have a couple of key, like larger kind of draws that we really focus on having 1 or 2 towns that or I don't know, some number of towns or locations that are really great places that are sort of bigger draws, fewer great places versus many good places. And then because this came up in all this great places sessions, what is a great place? What do you think is a great place? That's something we could ask residents in our public outreach. And will established places fall behind without new development or reinvestment? In housing and development. People mostly agree that affordability is a problem and a high priority issue. There's also the issue of job growth already outpacing the increase in housing units, and that's predicted to continue. How do we manage that? We can't find people have somewhere to live if they're working here, and the development costs are high. Questions about how much government intervention and what type of government intervention is necessary or possible to create affordable housing and what that might look like. A question of whether people are looking for new housing units, like there's how much of the demographic is there that wants to buy new versus just finding what they can. And should the county, try to develop housing on county-owned property or get more into the landlord business? This one is a huge one that we don't have an answer to, but I wonder if there are more numbers we can crunch or find related to this. How much more supply would be needed to alleviate the housing crisis? Like, what would that look like? If we, like, how much would we need before it would result in something where we'd say, okay, that's enough. Like, housing prices calms down. There's housing at a variety of price points for anyone who wants it. What does that look like? What could that look like? And then questions about a land trust. What would that, is that a possibility? Is that something that we want to look into? And then thinking about the
I have a
public.
comment about the
Yeah, go ahead.
housing crunch.
Mhm.
I mean, I know this is all gonna happen as we go through the Montco 2015 process and doing some of this, statistical, but I think along with that, not only just a housing crunch, but we should figure out what is the actual need for affordable housing. And what, is there a statistic of people leaving the county or areas of the county because they can't find affordable housing? I don't know whether that information is out there, how we get it, but that would be something that would be, we have this thought process that there's a need for affordable housing, and that's, I'm seeing into my business, I understand it, but what is that need? How acute is it? And then just the overall housing crunch, is there, so.
Yeah, that's a good comment. And I'm personally interested in this math, like what can we calculate? What can we figure out? I don't really know the answer to that, but we'll look into it. So and then, thinking about the public and this kind of backlash from a significant portion of the population against new development, the concern that maybe we can dive into that a little more, try to understand people's concerns, and that people are concerned about sense of place in some ways, so that good development that retains community character and is in the right places can alleviate that somewhat. Land use. Agreement that some of the major changes coming would be to the type of industrial and some warehouse types growing and possibly other types decreasing, more residential and Main Street areas, changes to shopping malls and office parks. There was this interesting question raised about parking, like, are we tracking how much parking there is now? And can we look at how much parking there will be in the future and how that's changing? Because that's actually, we don't count it separately, but it's a significant use of land in the county. Interesting comment. Public perceptions of development do not match actual land use change. So people say, oh, there's so much new development. When we look at the new development map that we looked at a couple months ago and that was on those tables, it's not showing huge swaths of land churned from open space into developed land. It's more infill and smaller pockets. So what is it that, how do we work with that with the public? Where can people accept it, and how can we sort of talk about this, that land use change has actually slowed significantly in the last decade, and that we're not seeing as much conversion of wild areas to develop land as we used to, but there's still this. People are not happy with what they are seeing, not everyone, but.
The problem is
yeah.
people don't know what the land uses are in their area until something
Right.
actually gets proposed.
Right.
They become hyper educated and not necessarily understanding all of the ramifications or how they got to that point. So I think that's
Right.
part of the issue was most people are not in tune with what the land use regulations are in their municipality and their neighborhood until something actually gets proposed. So, and then they want to know why it's like that. So.
Definitely interesting discussions around farmland and trying to get trail easements before preservation and some disagreement on whether we should be preserving farms in areas that have been designated for development or that already are developed. There are open space related questions, very broad one. How much open space do we need? I don't know that that's an answerable question, but it's an interesting way to put it. Definitely comments to preserve environmentally sensitive areas and connections between open areas or wildlife corridors adjacent to existing preserved land would be a priority. And then this key question that has come up many times, but is a really important one to keep track of: what is the county and local capacity for managing additional preserved land that may be publicly owned in the future? Resiliency and infrastructure. This is a forest pavement here on these spaces in Shrikesville. So we have to plan for increased storms in all kinds of ways, including evacuation routes, and that our land use decisions do impact the resiliency to severe storms and to heat and to severe heat, right? So we have to think about that when we plan, and that there needs to be more collaboration between all kinds of different entities on these issues moving forward. Funding definitely raised in this topic area significantly in terms of maintenance of existing infrastructure, funding for new stormwater management infrastructure, which is desperately needed, funding for fire companies especially, but all kinds of emergency services, and then discussion about equity issues with certain types of fees and taxes that may be considered that will hit some folks harder than others. It's a challenge. Retrofitting existing development that does not manage stormwater on site because they weren't required to when it was built. Like, how do we deal with that? How do we go back? I mean, it's almost impossible in some ways, but how do we think about that? What can we do? Who can make a difference? Who's championing this issue? Who's keeping it in front of everybody? Well, a storm like last night will keep this issue in front of everyone to a certain extent. And that the public sector does have a role to play, the county, the municipal leaders, right? This isn't something that's all going to be solved through land development. You have to keep working on it. And then finally, transportation. The transportation future, we had a discussion in all the groups about what does that look like? Pretty much consensus that we design for all modes into the future, and that there's definitely this hope for realistic choices, like you can drive, or it's plausible, it's realistic to take a bike, to take transit to get where you want to go, but it won't take you 10 times as long and be really unsafe. Expanded transit frequency and location is definitely desired. Closing gaps, sidewalks and trails. And then this, in several groups came up discussion of shorter trips, really focusing on how can we switch short trips to more bike ped trips. And looking that there would probably be more e-bikes into the future and that we should be planning for that. Questions, maybe further issues or further discussion, how much of a culture change is needed to shift the transportation system in these kinds of ways. And then there was definitely discussion about trails in particular on into the future. Are we going to be lighting them, plowing them, having them really be able to be used by people who are commuting and including past 5 p.m. in the winter? And that there were a number of comments that these trails are already being used in these ways, and that we should acknowledge that there are safety issues and other things with the fact that the county does not does not support trail use after dark, and that we should change how we're doing that, but some question about how much we should go in that direction and how many of the trails really do we need to do this for? And then how much should the county be advocating for and prioritizing on motorized modes? Those of you who were in Matt's transportation sections, he asked everybody this question. I thought that some of you who were in those groups might like to see the final tally of, would you prioritize safety over mobility, both? And then there were several comments about that there are some improvements that can improve both. Some things you can do to the roadway system that will improve both safety and mobility, but in some cases it is somewhat of a trade-off. So we get, moderate safety. Erring on the side of safety is definitely more popular here, but people chose even. So it's kind of those comments. Few other things that came up in a lot of the groups. It matters what new developments looks like, how it functions, how it integrates into the existing community. And this is something that came up in great places in land use and housing and development. So something we have to, it is something we're already thinking about, but something we have to keep in mind and as a real priority. Outreach needs to be part of this plan to younger generations, to Latinos, to newer residents, other folks, just make sure that we're really reaching people. And then this kind of came up in a number of groups. We can make suggestions, have goals that are not things that are within the county government's power, and that's fine. But there's also this question of what can we, the county government, do on any of these issues? And that's something that came up in lots of groups and something we need to keep talking about. What's sort of the broader goal, and then what's the county government's role specifically? And then this kind of item here is something we definitely need to talk about more. That we could consider more definitive policy statements, more specific implementation steps and things like that in the plan that we had in Montco 2040. Or it could be a follow-up document. I mean, we're all here for that discussion, something we need to keep thinking about and talking about. That is pretty much my recap from that. I don't know if, I know there are comments that you all made that I didn't highlight today. And I don't know, Scott, if you want to say something about the advisory committee or next steps.
Yeah, we just tacked on the experience and reiterating, agreeing with Jonathan's sentiments at the beginning. I think they were fairly universal. And going into the advisory committee as we launch it this year, I think the lessons we learned from this practice and this event is going to carry over to that. Not only the information will be valuable, but also how it worked, process, and how people open up or discuss. And I think we'll be able to take some of those lessons from it and apply to that effort going forward. So again, thanks for being the not guinea pigs, but the initial start, and both in terms of ideas and also practice. But it's very helpful.
What's the time? Do you have a sense of any timing on kicking off the advisory committee?
We didn't make the timing we were hoping to get, but we're allowing for the transition to take place. I think there's a little bit of complication perhaps with transition committees at the administration level, so we may have to weave into that, or at the end of tack on to the end of that and then launch from there. But right now we're mocking up 2-year calendars, and I think if we had our first meeting in April, we would still be in a pretty good place.
Do we have staff still working, I guess, on figures and demographic numbers that can be used during the process? I guess there's a lot of prep work that can be done.
Yeah, a lot of that background stuff has been done, and there's still some more. We haven't publicly launched the background trend documents, which will probably be the next step, as well as the online mapping resource center. So I think we're within the month of doing that, and that'll also be publicly noticeable time. Which be good. Any other comments from board members, for Chloe or for Scott, regarding the Montco 2050?
When you were talking about the different sections, I just was hit by how they intersect.
Yes.
I mean, when you're looking at housing, I look at transportation. If you can't get a house in the neighborhood that's close to work, then you're commuting and we're building more roads for you. So, yeah.
I think we talked about that last month. So one of the things that should come out of the Montco 2050 plan should be to try to show how there's a lot of connective tissue between all of those topics and how they have dependencies and reliability on each of those topics. So for their own success. So and hopefully that is something that is incorporated into and it's not an easy task, but I think it's something that's worthwhile to incorporate into the 2050 plan. Any other comments? Staff? Besides our.
We need to hear from Ann.
No. Thanks, Chloe. Appreciate all the work you did.
Yeah, thanks, Chloe.
Next up is Hatboro Community Planning Update. We got a triumvirate here. We got John, Pattie, and Erin.
I know my name's on there, Steve, but you're gonna see enough of me later. So just John.
So can I cross you out?
Two
You
of
cross
us.
me out later. Yeah.
Don't smile about it.
Good morning, John.
Good morning, everybody.
How you doing?
Doing good, made it through the storms all right.
Yeah.
See, you did too. Let's see, the slides.
Because of Hatboro.
Oh. My apologies,
I mean, I could try to do it from memory.
I wasn't here the first time.
I can't really convey the imagery.
I didn't know we had a PowerPoint, I wasn't here. Which slide is yours?
Rob is still between Christmas and New Year's.
I'm
It's
sorry.
okay. You'll hear about Hatboro more, I think, in the work program, so anyway. Now, this is a contract that began with the start of 2023, so we're already a little ways into it, but that's all right. This is an update, check in on Hatboro. In case you are not familiar with Hatboro, location there is up in our kind of eastern corner. It's one of our old historic boroughs. Go. Right off of the turnpike. Slide. I can do this myself, okay. It's one of our kind of mid-sized boroughs, about 8,000 people, a little under 1.5 square miles. Moderately dense. It's a good kind of transition between our denser, sort of more urban neighborhoods and that kind of surrounding suburbs, very walkable. Median age is a little younger than the county as a whole. It's a pretty active community, a lot of parks, hear more about that. Household size is fairly small, moderate income for our county. Home price is trending up like the rest of the county. Currently a little above the countywide median. And home size is a little bit smaller, as is typical for our boroughs, just about 1,500 square feet. And employment is generally, hard to get hard numbers on this, but it's around 2,000 jobs. It has a pretty good employment base. Past work under the previous contract, the 2020 to 2022 contract, began with a walkability audit here, talk about. This contract was, for the most part, except for the last couple of months where I stepped in, was under Chloe Mohr. See her here conducting this part of the walkability audit, exploring the streets of Hatboro, evaluating the quality of sidewalks, where there are sidewalks, the presence and quality of the crosswalks, safety issues there. And that product also included some renderings and concepts for improving safety in a number of locations. And some of those resulted in projects that sought funding and resulted in grant applications, and work with PennDOT to kind of right size portions of York Road. Also, marketing of Hatboro for economic development. This is all kind of following on the comprehensive plan adopted in 2019. So key feature here being a marketing brochure presenting Hatboro to prospective, business tenants maybe moving into, considering Hatboro. Talking about the general character, its walkable, historic Main Street. Land uses and where these opportunities for businesses exist.
Were we involved in this?
We made that.
Yes, that's our
Anastasia
work.
made it.
Yeah.
And Anastasia made it look really beautiful.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you're in the room for this.
We're,
Yeah.
we all know. Great work.
Yeah, so talking about the region and the kind of site criteria, how Hatboro might check boxes for people. And testimonials from local, business leaders, business members of the business community. And this is something that I think could work well for other communities as well. This is, I think, a great example of how we can support economic development.
Gotta change it up. Bernie's closed.
It has, yes, but that's an opportunity site now.
There you go, John.
So,
Hey, turn that around, John.
yeah. Another feature though too is further implementation through zoning with the historic overlay as one example. Adopted in 2021, this applies across the borough and looks to grant some additional protection to their historic properties. They've had a historic commission for a while and now they have this overlay where the historic registry, the historic resources that are registered are eligible for some adaptive reuse options that might not be available to other surrounding properties, some relief from dimensional standards, and establishing these processes by which the commission and the borough can review alterations to historic properties, demolitions of historic properties, and talking about how and when other work on properties or even relocation of historic properties could take place. So photo there is one of our more prominent examples on York Road, the old mill there.
How
So
many properties did they identify?
they are continuing to add almost on a monthly basis, more properties to their register. Just in the time that I've worked with them, I've seen 3 be reviewed and added to the register.
And what's the criteria? What's the criteria for something?
So the historic properties criteria is a fairly long list. They only need to be meeting, 1 or more. But generally follows the National Historic Register criteria. So, being at least 100 years old or in some way associated with a really prominent historic figure, some significance. The old example of George Washington slept here or something. So they have, added things like this mill building, which is one of their older, more prominent locations, their Borough Hall, library, etc. And so we've got a new contract started with going year here. 2.5 planner days per month, 12 night meetings per year. Just shy of 13,000 for municipal share on average per year. For a total contract cost of $77,868. This is kind of in keeping with our level of service that we've had for them. One of the main features of the new work, something that is implementing their comp plan and was actually begun just in the ending of the last contract and ongoing now, is a complete rewrite of their zoning ordinance going across the whole borough. Their future land use plan from the comprehensive plan looks to kind of simplify their land use. Their zoning right now has a lot of different districts and overlays. It's pretty complicated for such a small borough. And they are looking to nudge things in a little different direction in certain key areas, having less industrial in neighborhood settings, a little bit more mixing of uses surrounding their main street and on their main street. So this has already led to and influenced their adoption of a mixed use development option in their town center. This is
kind of a forerunner to the intended town center districts on York Corridor. And there are 2 development proposals already seeking approval in the borough using this option, with a third kind of in the pipeline, kind of in contemplation. And it seems to be having the desired effect of welcoming new mixed-use development to their main street. So far, we've been looking at residential districts, mixed-use districts in those kinds of transitional sort of edge of neighborhood, edge of main street areas, industrial districts, and starting to do some testing of concepts, looking at different ways to change definitions to better reflect what's already there in the borough. So there's not so many need for zoning relief and non-conformities, testing possible new uses such as accessory dwelling units. It's something that they have precedent for, but their existing definitions are talking about servants' quarters and things, and it's not widely recognized as a possibility. There was interest at the comprehensive plan stage in tiny houses and cottage courts, these kind of new concepts. So we tested that to see how viable they would be in candidate sites, and fortunately, the things aren't looking good for that. They have a townhouse option that kind of undercuts that. But testing is ongoing as we draw up draft zone for their planning commission to start looking at here in the new year. And another big feature, where I'm going to kind of pass things over to Erin here, is headed up by our design section in Pennypack Elementary School down on the creek. The borough acquired the property from the school district, and with the school building came a 10-acre site with a lot of fields and riparian buffers and a lot of opportunity to possibly have a new large borough park. Erin, if you'd like to step up and kind of take it away.
So we started working last year on this in the springtime, mostly from spring until this fall was looking at the existing site, meeting with the steering committee and the borough staff to kind of get an understanding of what's going on in the site. So this was bought by the borough from the school district because the school is in the floodway, the actual building. They are using the building as their borough offices right now, and they haven't had any issues with it in terms of flooding, but it is along the Pennypack Creek here. So you can see within this different, but there are certain areas where it's within the floodway. I believe the pink area there shows it. Oh. So these are. Well, I'll just go through this. They in November, after we kind of gathered through our existing conditions review, we had a public open house, and in that we have some staff in the room that were there to help it. We gathered up information on specific focus areas. So we kind of focused on this area here is where we have some fields right now from Hatboro abortion soccer is actually there right now. And then yeah.
One second. Can you orient us? Can you tell us where?
Yes, so these are my slides, so I'm gonna move a little off on exactly. So the building is trying to see exactly where it's shown here. This is the building right here. You'll see it. And so this is the Pennypack Creek. Right here is this is all the borough owned property. Anything in red. And so York Road. Yeah, York Road is right here. Sorry.
This is the southwest part of.
Yeah.
So is the 10 acres, all of this is like the red lines
Yeah.
parcels?
Yeah.
Oh,
Parcels.
these lots.
Yes, those are all the parcels.
Nothing's.
No, I understand that.
Yeah, so
But is
those
the 10
are,
acres made up of several parcels or is it one
Yes.
parcel? Okay.
yeah, all of these parcels are
All
part of
those
it.
smaller parcels and is all
Yeah.
part of the 10 acres?
Yep, so basically from here, this is all the neighborhood on the outside here. So there are single family homes surrounding this area as well.
But everything in red is
With the-
10 acres that you're
Yep.
talking about.
With the building on site.
And the building is down
It's, yeah, right here, you can kind of see this outline. Yeah,
And where's the floodplain line?
the floodplain on this map is this purple color here. So that is as far as it goes. This blue part is the actual floodway.
Right.
And then the stream runs along that.
And that's the 100-year floodplain?
Yes,
Got
yes. Yeah, this other color here is a 500-year, which we don't design for, but good to know since might be doing that soon. But yeah, so the big conflicts here are between the environmental issues and the community ones. So there is soccer field play on here right now. It is within flooding area. So there's some questions about how can we mitigate flooding and keep some of those community assets like recreational fields. Other than that, we kind of, through the public outreach, we got an interest of what the priority uses would be. And then also, you know, kind of a good variety of who our huge stakeholders are that we're working with. So right now we're at the point, since that was the beginning of November, we've been working on developing the programming of the site, and we'll be showing them our first round of concepts to the steering committee the end of this month. So we're kind of moving along, and the goal is to have this wrapped up by the end of spring.
Was another school built to take the students from this?
Yes, yeah. I'm not exactly sure.
The
of that.
Hollowell School is one, and
It was the
Crooked Billet.
Crooked Billet Elementary School was torn down and rebuilt in twice its size. That's the other elementary school that's within the borough limits. And so now all students from Hatboro go to that one school where before they were split between Pennypack and Crooked Billet. So once that school reopened, the new school opened there, they closed the school.
So how much of this 10 acres is actual land and how much of it is part of the Pennypack Creek?
Of the actual land, so I believe our extents go. I kind of had extents from on here. I'm not
Because the
really
map
sure
is
the exact
confusing, it's like I'm not
acreage.
sure what's water, what's land.
Yeah.
Yeah,
What's-
sorry, I apologize for, this is a map from early in our process as we were identifying the kind of site constraints. I erred on the side of not including anything that wasn't public yet. And the riparian corridor is actually fairly narrow, which is in part why they have flooding.
Yeah, there is just another point on this DCNR grant projects that they have where they are providing additional riparian buffer. I'm gonna kind of show this here. So this is the edge of the stream along here. So everything out of that, in theory, we want to keep the 100 feet off of the stream edge. Right now, that would be in the building. So there, probably the building gets as close as 50 feet from the edge of the top of the stream.
And when we do the work program presentation, which isn't up yet, I do have a couple maps I can show that are.
Yeah, there were,
I mean, the map is just confusing. I'm not getting-
yeah,
not
no,
getting-
I agree.
You're
That's
figuring
okay.
out the deal with
Pattie will show you the
that.
existing conditions. There were some other slides, I think, just to get caught up. But
Yeah, because I'm just trying to figure out what the connected
yeah,
land parcels are and what's, usable within a floodplain and what, for the township had just, and it's hard for me to understand what I'm looking at as far as what is actual land and what is actual water.
yeah. Pattie will, when she goes through the work program, have the existing conditions map that was part of it.
Do they have have they identified a program of stuff that they have?
That's what we're doing right now. So originally the steering committee was built up to do that and they were having some conflicts. They brought us in to kind of, and that was part of the community public outreach that we did to really get more detail on that. But it will be kind of that balance of the environmental needs. There's something that'll probably require if they do want to go further with stormwater management or floodplain restoration, that they'd want to do additional study, but we're recommending different areas for that versus recreation and then other community and environmental education.
Are they considering the community connections, whether the trails?
Yep,
or more
Yep,
ways?
so there are trails existing. There is a bridge that goes out here and a connection that comes in here. Yep, so and that's another part of it. They're already being used by people walking their dogs or just walking around them. So there is an interest in expanding those, both for bike use, pedestrian use, and some more natural area.
Possibly outside the borough, just so people can perambulate.
Yeah, there is
Why-
connections to other areas just from the existing trail system.
Where's
And
that,
that
where's the
really-
main street in Hatboro?
So York Road is here, that.
So down where the creek is where the old mill is.
Yep.
Yes.
And the old
Right
Y,
here.
the old Y building is. south
Yeah,
of
and
that.
Miller's Meadow is right down here,
Okay.
I'll say there.
Yeah, I'm getting it, sort of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are there any other questions? Would be,
Any other questions for Erin? Or for John? Or you got?
So basically-
Yeah, if there's. any
So
questions.
basically, we were brought in because they couldn't come to consensus on it.
yeah, I think they were having some issues just with
And we
decisions
have.
because of a lot of.
We have a contract we've had a long time and think all the work that, Eric has done over the years is they had a lot of trust in us. That we could
that's what I'm-
help them
Yeah.
come to some sort of compromise and facilitate those conversations. And that's
Yeah.
why we were asked to.
That's why.
And in the steering committee meetings, I think we've helped to kind of gather up the different voices and really them in a clear.
That's the impact of being there.
Yeah, and that is why we decided to do more public outreach. There was a survey that went out, but really, there's a lot of strong voices and opinions for how this space should be used. We're
I'm
trying
assuming they didn't pay a lot of money.
they did get it, I believe, at the discounted rate because of the flood issues.
Right.
I know there was some discussions in that, but
That was really.
What is that outlier
Yeah.
of red outline?
So that layer there is all borough owned property. That's actually a borough parking lot.
yes.
That's behind York Road. It's close enough to the site that it's kind of within consideration as like overflow parking if there were events down there.
Yeah, and I think when Pattie shows hers in the work plan, you see, we did note that as an opportunity for overflow parking. One of the big issues is this is used for soccer right now and some other events. And the school, the parking lot is designed for a school. So that is part of the design too, of looking how we can reconfigure the parking lot for more of a public space. And then use that overflow for community events, larger events that require it, rather than parking in the neighborhood, which is a big issue right now.
It's a very built out, small neighborhood and people that, even though you're allowed to park on public streets, people start objecting to their streets being filled, their parking space being gone. And people kind of racing down the street
Yeah.
because you can. So it's all of that, those are all the voices we did hear as part of that outreach.
You get the lawn chairs and the front.
Yeah. There have been some, if you read up on recent events.
Yeah.
There's
Got
been
it.
that.
Any other questions for John or Erin? Great, thank you very much.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, sir. Be interested to see this more as it gets developed.
Yeah.
Okay. Next up is Montco 2040 implementation report and Paul and Ann. Hi, Ann.
Oh, hi.
Happy to be here, Erin.
I've not done it before.
You read this?
First thing.
I read it.
It's about time we heard this.
That's
Groundhog Day.
Next month, I think I'm making a few presentations. You only get a little bit of it.
Cool, Stephen.
Can I ask a question right up from the start?
Sure.
Thank you. Integrate these two documents for me. And on the short-term goals in this document are what's gonna appear in this document.
Yes and no. So the work program is specifically just a planning commission document where we outline our prior achievements from 2023 and what we hope to get done in 2024. With a grain of salt because we never get to all of it. But this document goes beyond just the planning commission. I reach out to all of the county departments, probably annoyingly so, to ask what they have achieved, implemented, done over the last year to implement the goals of Montco 2040. We didn't really incorporate other departments and what they do year over year when we were writing Montco 2040. So we, but it's been interesting to work with other departments to ask what they're working on because we really do a lot as a county to implement these broad goals. So that being said,
Even so, just to follow up.
Yeah.
So once this becomes final, what happens to it?
I am presenting this I shouldn't say Scott is presenting this to the county commissioners at their next public business meeting. It gets put on our website. We distribute it to other departments. It goes, just to let people know what we've been up to.
I'll also add, it adds to the kind of rallying cry with the other departments. Our administration or senior management has been really helpful over the last 10 years since Montco 2040 was gone, as far as getting other departments to recognize this is not just a planning commission document, that this, these policies and goals should impact the work that people are doing in assets infrastructure, bridges, and all the departments, housing. So there's been a gradual increase in the prominence of it, and it's culminating in with Montco 2050, where we're actually doing a much more extensive job of working with the other departments to get them in the ground floor. But this process through at the end of each year, or beginning of each year, if you want to look at it that way, allows us to, keep it in front of them, keep them looking at, keep it them mindful as they do their own work programs and their own plotting for what the departments do.
So this is like a scorecard for the county, the entire county's efforts on Montco 2040.
That's one, that's a good way.
Thank you, sorry.
No, that's okay. I am gonna try to breeze through some of these slides that you have seen before because literally it's the 8th or 9th time I've done one of these presentations on how we've been implementing the comp plan. But we are trying to work more closely with other county departments. We do have a lot of other county departments that are working on strategic planning exercises of their own. I was talking about this with Chloe, our Office of Public Safety is doing an emergency management strategic plan. We've got our Office of Public Health that's doing a community health assessment. They're all, kind of similar to the kinds of things that we think about and talk about here. So it's important for us to make sure that we're incorporating all of those ideas into
And
the
do
work
they
that we're
even
doing.
know that we have a county plan?
They better by now.
But I'm saying, no, I don't want to be naive about it, but do they understand that there is a plan? All these different departments out there, that we have a plan that has been developed at the county and that the county commissioners.
You're asking if the other departments do?
I do honestly think.
I mean, how much.
I mean, whether they
use
gets it and they put it on the shelf and it is not part of.
No,
the
we
thing.
have department head meetings. Lisa
Okay.
Letiziak is a great advocate and always telling
Okay.
everyone, look at the plan, look at the plan, and in our commissioners have been champions of
Good.
performance was very.
It is truly embraced.
Okay, so the first of our themes is connected communities, that we have people and places that want to be connected to each other. The goals of the connected communities theme are to encourage collaboration and partnership, to improve transportation quality, and to give workers better options on how they get to work, to expand and connect our county trails and open space areas, and to support strong downtown community destinations. In 2023, we funded 15 projects from the Montco 2040 implementation grant program. I'm excited to work with my little small committee this year. I've already gotten lots of inquiries as to the grant program, so it's still popular, and I'm excited to see that move forward. We continue the county's commitment to DEI with a speaker series, professional development offerings. There is now an advisory council for equity here that works directly with Donna Richmond, our DEI director here, and we also have an equity and justice training series. And if you walked in the front door as you arrived here today, you saw that we're continuing to progress on the Justice Center construction project. Health and Human Services has a lot of community partnerships that are highlighted in the document. They're working on a wastewater surveillance program to monitor SARS levels throughout the county. We installed this is for you, Stephen. I'm moving on from story walks and talking about traffic gardens. We designed and installed 2 traffic gardens, one in New Hanover and one in Hatboro. I believe the Hatboro one is behind Pennypack Elementary, and was a nice partnership between Barry Jeffries in this office and our staff in the Office of Health and Human Services. We held online homebuyer education workshops targeted at low to moderate income households, as well as an in-person housing fair. And our Office of Veterans Affairs worked with the county's veterans through events and social media outreach, and used an interesting project through our mapping technology to help target underserved veteran populations by looking at where people live and where we weren't providing enough services. Also in 2023, we had a lot of success with transportation infrastructure improvements. We had 2 county-owned bridge reconstruction projects and 4 bridge construction projects completed, as well as a lot of paving work that was completed along Germantown Pike and other county-owned roads. County Transportation Program, again, granted about $1 million to 3 new transportation projects. And we installed almost 2.5 miles of new on-road bike lanes in Upper Marion and Whitpain. And Montgomeryville installed some new sharrows on their roadways. Also worth mentioning that PennDOT, as part of their 202 reconstruction work, installed about 5 miles of bike lanes along 202 as well in the mid part of the county. And trail construction and open space planning efforts across the county are strong as usual. Finished the Chester Valley Trail extension that I mentioned last year was almost done. This time around it is done. That happened at the very beginning of the year. We began engineering of Pennypack Trail crossing improvements at Byberry Road. We finished flood wall construction at the Spence property in White Marsh. We visited the Trail Junction Center on our away tour this year. So you only saw the outside briefly, but the architectural and design services that we've been planning for advanced there, and we initiated landscape architecture services there as well. It really will be a nice amenity for the county when it's done. And the trail planning and construction work received several grants from the local share account statewide for the Trail Junction Center and for the White Marsh floodplain restoration, which will surely come up again today, as well as the cross county and Wissahickon Trail construction work that's being done. Also in 2023, we worked to support our downtowns and community destinations with CDBG funds that have supported a variety of different programs, the public events that have been held at the Trail Junction Center, the community planning section's ongoing comprehensive planning work. We had Lower Providence's comprehensive plan adopted, but we also made progress on comprehensive plans in the Upper Perkiomen region, Abington, Cheltenham, and Horsham townships. We did a lot of design work to strengthen our downtowns with Lansdale's Railroad Plaza moving forward, streetscape design and landscaping ideas that are advancing for the Cross County Trail, as well as a park design in Douglas Township. And the community planners here obviously work to improve local zoning and other ordinances beyond just the local comprehensive plans that they write, with East Greenville's new streetscape plan and Springfield Township's trail network and connectivity plan. In 2024, we're going to keep at it. We are going to, through our Health and Human Services Department, promote their ongoing partnerships to support family health, ongoing vaccinations, education, literacy initiatives throughout the county. They'll provide education on healthy foods and lifestyles as well. Also eliminating food waste and promoting walkability and travel safety. We'll continue the Montco 2040 implementation grant program. The transportation infrastructure improvements will continue as well with the completed construction of section D along Ridge Pike. The county's bridge reconstruction work will continue. We'll continue to work on implementing Bike Montco and our newly completed e-bike policy. We will start construction at the Trail Junction Center, as I just mentioned, and continue planning work in our downtowns. And also worth mentioning, the county's recovery office is doing a lot of work to implement some of the ARPA projects that had received funding earlier last year. One of the things they've been working on is an ongoing Northtown Community Facilities project. They've been doing a lot of outreach in Northtown around that. And next year, they hope to finalize their community facilities project plan to move forward with whatever new construction or renovations they decide are the next best step. Next up, sustainable places. County has a lot of great neighborhoods and communities that need to be sustained in a long-lasting way. Goals of sustainable communities or sustainable places, include supporting energy efficient infrastructure, improving stormwater management, providing opportunities for residents to have healthy lifestyles, supporting housing choices for all, and enhancing community character and neighborhoods. In 2023, we worked to address water quality by advancing revisions to the Wissahickon Creek Water Quality Improvement Plan, as well as continuing to implement the county's MS4 permit. We continue to preserve open spaces and improve our park properties. You may have noticed in the news that we worked with Natural Lands to complete the easement acquisition and county trail easement on Camp Laughing Waters. That was a project that was many years in the making, so it is great to see that that has moved forward. We should say the county's Parks Department has continued master planning for the county's historic sites. I believe that right now there is a master plan process underway at Green Lane Park. I know that some people in this office are participating on that planning committee, and there is a master plan on deck for Long. We also worked to continue making progress toward opening Sunrise Mill as a public historic site. It's a property the county has owned for a long time, but has not been open to the public. Last year, the County Department of Parks, Trails, and Historic Sites worked to install a dedication marker to the doctor that lived there, who was a pioneering laryngologist. We worked to begin pursuing a permit exemption option for the Northtown Dam hydroelectric facility, completed the update to the county's hazard mitigation plan, and continued the county's commitment to sustainability through a variety of ways, but including the ongoing hazardous waste collection events and our renewable energy purchases and commitments. I'm running out of steam. 2023 achievements. We also worked on supporting housing needs of all people in Montgomery County. We grew the membership in the Your Way Home Continuum of Care by adding new members to that group. We also worked to establish Code Blue emergency shelters in 3 new facilities for an extra 85 cots for a total then of 152 beds countywide. Since there is no permanent homeless facility here in the county at the moment, these Code Blue shelters really are an important way of keeping people safe. We promoted access to healthy lifestyles with the 8th annual Montgomery County Trail Challenge. That's always a popular way to get people out and about. I believe this top photo is of the Parking Watershed. The Health and Human Services Department started a Healthy Corner Store initiative to bring fresh produce to places that might not have enough places to access that sort of thing. And we added 3 new senior centers in Lansdale, Norristown, and Abington to serve communities that might need specialized outreach. Enhance community character in a variety of ways. Health and Human Services worked to create a Hometown Heroes banner program, including installing banners at community college. As I mentioned, our Office of Public Safety started an EMS study and strategic planning process. They also expanded training for junior firefighters to give them more options on becoming certified and especially relevant after last night's storm. Continued advanced training for the county's urban search and rescue team, as well as the hazardous materials response team. In 2024, we've got big plans. We are initiating the Perkins Creek flood study. We will be submitting the Wissahickon Water Quality Improvement Plan for approval and implementation. We'll be facilitating implementation of the county's Climate Action 2050 plan as part of our ongoing resiliency partnership. We'll continue to hold hazardous waste collection events and work toward the permanent collection facility that's been a project for the last several years. Continuing the trail challenge, as well as supporting the county's changing and ongoing recreational needs, supporting farmers through educational events and the creation of a food policy council. We are, I think, having our first meeting coming up this month. We'll continue implementing Homes for All and supporting the housing needs of the county's residents, continuing ongoing park improvements, provide ongoing health supports, and support ongoing upgrades to the county's public safety facilities. Last but not least, a vibrant economy is crucial for the county. We need a strong economy for residents to earn and spend more, and making sure that we have the funds available for our needed infrastructure improvements here. Goals of a vibrant economy are to improve transportation access to businesses, encouraging development and transformative investment where infrastructure exists, attracting and retaining businesses, adapting to the changing market conditions here in the county, and facilitating the marketing of the county and its assets. It's great places, right? We already talked about great places.
Why don't we hit the highlights of the achievements and the goal and future stuff, because we're gonna run short.
All right. The highlights, I guess, are SRPRA. We didn't talk enough about that today. So that was accepted into the corridor ID program. That is our ongoing effort to expand rail out to Pottstown and Reading. Tourism and hotel stays continue to boost post-pandemic. And we are investing in the county's businesses and workers through a variety of ways, supporting RACP grant submissions, the Careers of Tomorrow event that are open to students. The Montco Investment Initiative with $1 million committed of investments in partnership with Ben Franklin Technology Partners. In 2024, more work to improve transportation infrastructure, with completing the final design and right of way of the Lafayette Street interchange, beginning final design of the Section A of Ridge Pike improvement, and also, I'm repeating this up there. I'll keep going. Partnering with the tourism board to promote the county's assets, and some interesting work that the Commerce Department is doing to support workers and workforce development. Okay, housing construction and non-residential development. I will just say that we are continuing to build in the right places. Housing was almost completely built in our growth areas. I believe 93% of homes in 2022 were built in our designated growth areas, 7% in our rural resource areas. 99% of our non-residential construction took place in our designated growth areas. FPUC was kind enough to update the program and vision transportation and roadway projects for me. These projects continue to move ahead as well. The program projects were the ones that had funding behind them from the time that we, I guess, wrote Montco 2040. Almost all of these projects have either been completed or are in design. And even some of the vision roadway projects have moved ahead, and that's that.
Wonder she's out of breath.
I am out of breath. I'll be back for the work program.
So one thing would be helpful, and mostly brought this up, it seems like stuff was organized on the slides by.
Well, I was confused when I looked at the there's so much stuff in here.
Yes.
But one of the questions that we had previously was what is done by other departments and what is solely done by us? So some designation of what we do alone, partnerships, and what other departments would kind of help us understand. When I look at this, I'm exhausted. I mean, it's a fabulous amount of progress, but it would be helpful to understand where this work was being done outside of planning commission.
I do put in the departmental abbreviations after each.
Oh, the snakes, I didn't see that.
That's okay, so that, you know, if it says HHS, that's something that Health and Human Services is done.
Page 26.
Okay, so I had to get to the end to figure out what the beginning said, right?
Yeah, to your
A
point,
code
we
book.
could highlight but just for our sake, but I wouldn't, for public, it is what
No,
it
no,
is.
no, but I always laugh, I always say, when you're not familiar with planning commission's work, you need a code book. And I think whether they were in color or whatever, it would just, it would alleviate my question.
Okay. Yes,
I see it. I actually had that same comment when I was reading through some of this last night, but I saw that these, the hydro dam is, you're trying to get a permit exemption for that, is that correct?
Drew's nodding, I'll take his word for it.
So there's a lot of money in the state right now to electrify dams.
Okay.
Because of the infrastructure.
And ability.
Funding that come through some of the federal bill. So one of the places that the state has been working on is electrifying dam on Schuylkill. So.
I thought I read a report somewhere that said that the low flows in the Schuylkill is problematic to that dam, is that correct? Or something?
We've got consultants working on it, and I don't think that's particularly an issue.
It's not an issue. This was the Norristown Dam was identified study that was done, a national study. And it was specifically identified as having potential to generate significant amount of power. So we even looked at maybe elevating the dam a little bit, but that's very problematic. As it stands, we should be able to generate enough power to split. For example, we could power the courthouse, the one Montgomery Plaza, and Justice. But I want to clarify that it's not a permit exemption. We're going in under a program that exempts us from a lot of the detailed red tape. It's still a permit, but once we get it, we don't have to renew it ever, which is a big plus. But the process is going to take probably 3 or 4 years, maybe 5 years. We have to talk to everybody. Okay.
Thank you.
Nice, very nice.
Any other questions for Ann? Okay. Move on to the work
Thank you.
program. So it's Montco 2024 Montgomery County Planning Commission Work Program. Scott.
I'll kick us off, and people who can speak, you could all join me up here. All right, well, this is I like to think of the highlight of our January meeting, and the last item on our agenda. To Jonathan's point, we are taking those comments of board structure and agenda meetings, and ways to look at more creative opportunities to discuss these issues. Today is probably not the greatest example of that, but it is on our radar here. With the work program, this is the 3rd year we've had this new format, which I think has been very, for us, it's been very successful and helpful in terms of identifying work to do and organizing it. And also, we're much more public about it. This document is something we want people to see. We want to share, not just internally and certainly with our administration, but also the public in general. So it does get put on our website and social media as well, so people can see it. And hopefully the new organization that we've been implementing makes it more clear. The organizational topics aren't just transportation, open space, but also the way we think about these things and the goals in a little more creative fashion. You go next slide. Go ahead. Thank you. Not trying. Okay. it kicks off, of course, with our organizational structure, which has not really changed, certainly from last year. The names and some of the titles and even a couple shifts in position have changed, but that's there for your reference, including the vacant notices are in there as well as of December of 2023. And getting into these focus topics, this is kind of the key concept that we put into the new work program last couple of years. And we did want to have it still have a link and a tie to the Montco 2040 comprehensive plan, which has those three themes that Ann just went through, showing this Venn diagram. But the topics themselves kind of fit within it. It shows how they, kind of go in between in some cases and may cover multiple themes. And all of this is fairly intentional, and also recognizing how many things do overlap and how you have to be cognizant of different sides of all the issues. So those are the focus topics. I won't read through them. We're going to go through them one by one as they relate to work projects in 2024. But you'll notice, right there in the middle, effective growth and preservation, which is the full title of that one, is the one that kind of rests in between the nexus of all three of those themes, I think in a more obvious way. So again, with the structure, I talked about the focus topics. Again, they're listed there, and how we think this provides a more clear and more interesting way of looking at the work that's being done. Beyond the focus topics, and we'll go through all of these in a little more detail through the presentation, but signature initiatives are where we talk about those flagpole type programs, and in some cases, other boards that are involved, beginning with the comprehensive plan, open space and farmland boards, planning education, and IIJA funding. And then we get to our core functions, which is a very important part of the plan. I'll talk more about that, but that's where our kind of cyclical and everyday kind of activities fall under. And then Eric's going to talk to us a little more about the community planning assistance program and some of the specific projects that are looking ahead in 2024. And then the final note on the product itself, or the publication, I emphasize every year because I think it's very important. Our intention, both through board direction and through our own desire to see how these are looked at, is we're not just looking at 2024. A lot of these projects take multiple years. They might stop and start during that time. They might have different phases. The time frame that's noted for each project, which there's a table on every section, you didn't see it. Hopefully it's very clear. There's short, medium, and long. If it's a short term, that means we're intending to get it complete, do it and complete it within the next calendar year, within 2024. So that's more the traditional work program approach. But there are plenty of medium projects which will take longer, and they are estimated to be essentially within 2 years. By the end of 2025, they're expected to be completed. And then the long term, which then you obviously go to 3 years or even longer. In fact, some projects don't actually have an end date. They may be ongoing as they are. So those are noted there. In addition, you see the other data points that are included with each project, just for reference and for help understanding who's involved with this. So now we're going to get into the carousel here and go through our focus topics. And even with the focus topic, that's not one section all the time doing all those projects. So you may hear from the lead section manager on a particular topic, or you may have someone may jump up and cover an element. But again, the integration and cross sections of our work is drives that. So Pattie, I think you're first.
Thank you, Scott. Great. So I'm going to kick this off with the focus topic of placemaking. So Montgomery County, as we know, has many communities that are vibrant downtowns, have main streets, have rural villages. We have office parks, we have green parks, and placemaking is part of that. So we define placemaking as a collaborative process by which we can shape our public realm. And so using universal design, we're working with our communities to create equitable, attractive, walkable, and economically feasible public spaces. Okay, said that, say thanks. So first one, again, in 2023, we did involve a lot of projects, but I'm going to highlight 3 in particular. First is the Fort Washington Office Park Landscape Plans. This is a medium-term project. We've talked about this a few times in the past, and this is where we work with the consultant for the Cross-County Trail, Bull Smythe, by providing them and producing the landscape plans that then go to construction for the trail. East Greenville Streetscape Plan and Design Guidelines. So East Greenville, I think everyone in the design section actually helped work on this with Tim Kenichi in community planning. And the borough is really thrilled with this plan. There was a lot we had input on, but I particularly want to point out the photo sim on the lower part of that where there's a line waiting to get into the theater on Main Street. I think that's a really great one. And please notice that Charlie Chaplin is at the end of that line in this movie. And then the Hatboro Traffic Garden. So Traffic Garden, we do a lot in our work in our communities, and this is a project done in conjunction with the health department. And it's in Pennypack Park, which you just saw Erin talk about earlier, but this is up behind the building. And just in case you ask, a traffic garden is a kind of a miniature downtown streets for kids to learn bike safety. And this has been striped out and painted in that parking lot behind their Borough Hall or the building. And eventually they hope to have small little businesses for the kids to stop by. So it should be fun. So I also want to talk about some of the initiatives. We have 3 initiatives in placemaking that I want to point out. We have a lot in the work program, but the first one I want to talk about is the Collegeville Main Street Revitalization Plan. So this project is a continuation of our effort with Collegeville over the past few years to concentrate on their Main Street, which included some zoning updates, zoning language, and work with the intersection here at 5th and Main where Sinus College is. And right now with this initiative, we're working with Dirk and Edson for, they're trying to help the borough establish their goals for Main Street. So, and some of those are illustrated by these plans. So what our portion of this was to work on, one of our tasks was to work on the Main Street between 4th and 5th. Not sure why my next was not coming up. Anyway, so there was another plan here. So again, it was just a continuation of Main Street. And so it was to come up with what would be an ideal and buildable cross section for Main Street between 4th and 5th Street. And this is not working.
Somebody put down a thing to move it over. Move it out afterwards, and that's now it should work.
Okay, there we go. There was the rest of that. Thank you. Okay. The next initiative is the Pennypack Park. Again, going back to Hatboro again. And this is, I hope you can maybe see it a little better on this particular map, where this is where the building is. You can now see a little bit of where the stream is and the area and the neighborhoods around it. And this was the existing site conditions that we did this summer in that work with them. And then this is some of our challenges and opportunities that we talked about with the steering committee. Again, even though we did some work last year on this, we kind of really do consider this kind of initiative. This year is going to be finished up this year, a short-term project. And I think what this is a really great example of how with our community assistance program, we can do expanded projects for our communities that really can give them more value for what they have there. And one of the other projects that I'm not showing here, but that will be part of that as well as the continued work on Railroad Plaza in Lansdale Borough. So, and the third project initiative I want to talk about is the Model Saldo. So this is another medium-term project. You may remember seeing this last year that we were starting on the landscape portion of that. So this is going to be a big initiative this year. We're planning to have the landscape portion mostly completed, if not completely completed, and we'll be kicking off the streetscape component. Those are my 3, and I think I hit my timing. So I'm going to pass it off to Drew.
So I had a question about placemaking.
Sure.
So all the placemaking stuff that you talked about is either like a park or within the right of way. Is there discussions within this part of the conversation of the work program, or is it in another section to try to identify ways to create destination places, which are also placemaking that would enhance the community, the economic development of an area?
I think it would fall under placemaking, but again, part of that is working with the communities, like maybe if they want to do a Main Street or they have an area like sometimes this is also touched by effective growth, which Erica's going to talk about, where when we work with our communities on, say, doing some mini focus areas for under their comprehensive plan to help create those third places. I think that that's kind of, that can vary between, we kind of have a we have an arm wrestle, decide who gets which jobs, whether it's effective growth or placemaking, Eric and I do, but again, it's kind of can fall in one of those two, but yes, we do.
I would want to be part of the conversation because, you know, some of this stuff is accessory to actually creating some kind of critical mass of like a destination location where people want to go, people want to.
And that's what the Collegeville effort is, just so, I mean, I know it looks like it's just the streetscape, but it really is meant for them. They really, the Collegeville's, one of their goals, or they say their goal is to have more people on that main street, have more people in that block between Fourth and Fifth, have students from Shines really come down in droves to town. And so that is what we're trying to help them do, is understand, not only do you have to work on zoning, but you have to create those sort of, whether those forecourts or those niches or those places that create a sense of a destination.
So besides the university, there's no other destination place on Main Street, so what's
Right.
the borough's forgetting about streetscape and everything, which is like, to me, a secondary aspect of getting people to be on Main Street as opposed to just the students that are in Sinus. But what is that destination other than the school to get people to congregate and
Business development.
and enhance that Main Street? Streetscaping is one thing.
Right.
There's still nothing. That's the part of the conversation in placemaking or in some other part of the work program that I think should be discussed, you know, or somehow be implemented with conversations with some of our communities.
And again, I agree with you, Steve, but I will say that the work we're doing with Collegeville actually does involve that. It's through some zoning rewrites, is they do have some properties along Main Street that could be destinations. It's just that they're in the wrong hands right now, or they haven't been developed to be that destination space. But again, we can take a closer look to make sure that we're throwing a wider net on that for sure. Okay.
Alrighty, good morning, everyone. Where we go here? Yes, environmental resiliency involves preparing for and responding to the environmental challenges the county faces, such as climate change, flooding, extended heat events. And this focus topic involves working with our municipalities and the neighboring counties to develop equitable tools that use resources available to address these issues, but don't diminish our ability to address future challenges. So among our many achievements in 2023, the hazard mitigation plan was completed ahead of schedule. And I know that the cover says 2022, but that's just a weird quirk of FEMA. They require that. We were ahead of schedule, and FEMA did compliment us on our plan and our outreach methods in particular, which included surveys in Spanish and in English, online and in paper, distributed to libraries and so on, and numerous public meetings. The climate action plan, you heard Ann mention that. This was completed by the Montgomery County Consortium of communities, with our facilitating that process. The plan was developed for municipalities. It's not a county plan, it's for the municipalities, and any municipality, not just those in the consortium, can adopt and implement those recommendations. Then the Wissahickon watershed water quality improvement plan reached some important milestones, including preparation of the revision text to respond to the regulators' comments. And this was a really interesting process. We met 5 times with staff from EPA and DEP to go through those comments, get their clarifications, work out how we were going to address it. It was a very collaborative process, which does not usually happen. Usually the regulators say, well, just give us something and we'll respond to it. So that was unusual and very welcome. The management committee also voted to recommend to their municipalities that they form a municipal consortium for implementation that will help us get grants and also contract with the engineers and consultants we need to complete the projects. Coming up in 2024, we have the Perkiomen flood study. This is the project that Representative Joe Webster acquired the $1 million grant from DEP to complete. And to be honest, the last year we spent just negotiating DEP's very convoluted contract process, but the contract is now in place. We are forming a steering committee among the counties and an advisory committee among the 54 municipalities. It's a big watershed. And we're going to be working on an RFP to secure a consultant so we can begin
to look at specific parts of the watershed and address flooding in those areas. I want to mention that we're also working on a stormwater plan update under an ARPA grant. This is separate. This is something different, but the data that we collect from this study will help us in a later date to complete a stormwater plan for the Perkiomen. We continue to work with DVRPC on energy issues, including ordinance language for building energy conservation and encouraging the use of solar power. This will address all sorts of issues such as placement of solar panels on rooftops to allow for access and safety for firefighters and so on. And also just to, in general, help the municipalities encourage the use of solar power. This work is being coordinated with other counties in the DVRPC region. We're all working together on this. And we are beginning an update of our sewer and water facilities inventory and maps. This has not been updated for several years, but the information is very important. When the community planners prepare a municipal comprehensive plan, for example, when we review our 247, our land development plans, and also the work that's being done to update the comprehensive plan this year. There have been significant changes to these facilities. Some of them have been purchased by private companies. There have been extension of lines into the surrounding area and various upgrades and expansions to the wastewater treatment plants. And we want to try to capture that information through some surveys to update the inventory. And I'll mention also in conclusion that we're coordinating with design and trails and open space on the White Marsh Wissahickon floodplain restoration project, which I think you've heard about. That's the 11-acre parcel along Skipback Pike in Fort Washington that was denuded after Ida. We stabilized it with vegetation, but now we're looking at a full-blown floodplain restoration project, which could involve sediment removal, reconnecting the creek to the floodplain, and will involve extensive vegetation of the wetland areas, the upland areas, and the stream banks. So how they do, Scott? Great. Good.
So, Drew, question
Yes.
on the sewer facility.
Yes.
Will the database identify capacity that is within the sewer treatment?
Oh, yes. Yes, that's one of the main things we look at in terms of DEP's rated capacity and how much excess capacity there is, because as you know, that drives development.
Right.
And we'll also be looking at things like cost, their front foot assessment, their sewer rents, some economic data as well.
To partner with Stephen's question, years ago, I was approached by private engineers saying that sewer capacity could be increased if there were technical changes to the sewer treatment, that people just didn't want to spend the money to increase capacity because maybe there was a push home about new development. I mean, is that being considered also?
Well, what we hope to get from the municipalities is what they've done to their plants, because you're right, you can tweak the process and get excess capacity without expanding the plants. We want to be able to understand just the growth impacts of what they've done. So we will be looking
And
at
the
that.
new technology, I'm sure there's new technology all the time.
Absolutely.
Well, see, that's what we're experiencing. The technology is changing, that the existing technology is no longer supported. So you don't have a choice but to upgrade technology. You can't find people to come out and service
Exactly.
the old existing facilities. So you're being forced to move into a new technology base.
Which will change those numbers on.
And adding to that, DEP is kind of ratcheting down, as you know, on their water quality requirements, and that requires upgrades as well. All right, effective growth and preservation. This topic focuses on accommodating residential and non-residential growth in a way that enhances and protects our towns and neighborhoods and enhances the quality of life throughout the county. In addition, again, to all the projects that we achieved in 2023, which you can see in the work program, the top three that we chose were a Lower Gwinnett Focus Area Plan. We're in the process of starting their comprehensive plan update. And we typically look at focus areas sort of at the end of that comprehensive plan after we've gone through all the goals and objectives. But due to some timing issues, or as a prominent property along Town Pike that is potentially going to be coming in for redevelopment. So they decided they want to take a closer look at that property, do some visioning for it, and determine what they'd like to see out of redevelopment of that. So this was a good collaboration with Claire Warner working for Lower Gwinnett and Kevin Chavou from design to come up with these goals and objectives for this property. We continue with our Todd outreach. Again, in 2022, we started that with a presentation at the state conference in Pennsylvania, as well as receiving an award for planning from Pennsylvania. In 2023, we again presented this time at the National Planning Conference. We hosted a walking tour along the riverfront in Conshohocken, showing off their Todd development. We also developed a self-guided tour for people more interested in learning about Todd development along Conshohocken's riverfront as well. We continue to work with SEPTA and in their transit supportive communities program. And there's several municipalities in we have contracts with that they're working through some potential development opportunities with. One of the last largest unprotected open spaces in the county, Camp Laughing Waters, is now protected. 458 acres were preserved. A combination of funding from the county, DCNR, both New Hanover and Upper Frederick Township. Is preserving some large meadows, some woodlands, some significant natural habitat. And then more importantly, I think from a county's perspective, we got a 2-mile trail easement, which will be part of our Sunrise Trail and part of the Swamp Creek Green Nice system.
That project, you know, I know there's been press releases, but people don't realize how impactful that project is and how much hard work was done both by the county, natural lands, and the Girl Scouts.
And it was an area where we didn't want to see a lot of new development. The regional plans for both Central Perk and Pottstown identified it as a rural resource. So kind of from that growth and preservation angle, we were trying to manage growth, but also preserving the land and the natural features that are there. In terms of initiatives for 2024, we're working on the Schwenksville revitalization plan, and then again, another collaboration with design planning on this. They've done a lot of work over the last 20 years with revitalization. You can see the mural that they did on Main Street there. They've got a lot of 2040 grant applications in. They redid the plaza in front of their new Borough Hall. So they have a lot of good bones. They've done some recent streetscaping, some improvements to Meadow Park. And they're really embracing the multi-regional greenway goals of nature tourism. And so they really want to they have the Perkiomen Trail right there, some nearby outdoor recreation, and they really want to leverage that for continued economic development. And then the official map. This is really a little used tool in Pennsylvania. It's authorized by the municipality's planning code. So we want to develop a guidebook that'll help municipalities understand this tool a little bit better. There's a lot of resources out there on what they do. And we have a handful of municipalities in Montgomery County, Limerick is an example there in the middle, that have adopted an official map. But we want to make sure people really understand it and more specifically understand the process. There is a real legal process to it. And this is just a great tool for preserving potential open space, trails, and other amenities for the community. So we want to make sure it's being used properly. And then the last one is a growth and preservation initiative is the County and Circuit Trail Network. And I'll let the expert speak on that one.
So I'll be talking about specific trail projects in more detail in just a few minutes when that section comes up. But before I do that, I wanted to talk about or take a step back and look at a more macro focused trail initiative that's been going on for the last couple of years related to the Circuit Trail Network. Starting the summer of 2022, Matt Edmond, Matt Popek, the transportation section, Scott and I have been working with DVRPC and our southeastern Pennsylvania county neighbors in the collar counties and including Philadelphia County to seek an allocation of carbon reduction program funding, which was part of the infrastructure bill that was passed a couple of years ago, and dedicate some of those funds toward further development and advancement of the Circuit Trail Network. Approximately $200 million of carbon reduction program funds are going to be allocated to the southeastern Pennsylvania region through 2036. We decided with our neighboring counties to strive for about $100 million or half of that amount to be dedicated toward the Circuit Trail Network. The purpose of that program is to reduce emissions. And from our standpoint as trail planners and people who want to push the trail network forward, it was really an effort to make the Circuit Trail Network a more reliable resource for transportation in the region and to really boost the development of the Circuit Trail Network construction because its development has lagged in the last few years because most of the low-hanging fruit has already been achieved. So we really wanted to give it a boost
and a jump start. So in terms of Montgomery County, we're going to be focusing on the cross-county trail as part of that funding initiative. It's 7 miles of the cross-county trail is currently being focused on in terms of how this funding would be used. Very broadly speaking, the funding that we're seeking for Montgomery County out of the carbon reduction funds is between $30 and $35 million. Just to give you a little perspective, about 18 or 20 of that is for the Germantown Pike Bridge, which is actually going to be funded through CMAQ, but which is still federal money. But the other $12 to $15 million from the carbon reduction program would be used to fund those 7 miles of the cross-county trail that you see on that map to the right. So very exciting effort, and we're very optimistic that this will move through the TIP process and really get some traction in the next 2 years.
Do you have that funding secured, or you work to get that funding?
We're working to get it secured.
Who's the arbiter of that funding? Like, where does the decision go?
DVRPC and getting it on the tip.
Which has board members from each county, so it's a regional consensus that has to be reached. And we're positively there.
But it's not funding that's coming from like another source of, or another department in the state or something that's.
No, this is federal money that was created under the IIJA. So, you know, they reconstituted a bunch of things we're familiar with, like surface transportation funding, and our HPP. But then they also ended up creating some new categories. Carbon reduction was one of those new ones. And it's money that the region gets every year. So that's what Bill's talking about, is the 5 counties made a push to talk to DVRPC to say, let's start funding trails like we fund roads, which program a project and see it all the way through with federal money. And carbon can be the money that we use because it's new to the region. And we don't have to take it from something else that already has.
So the money in the IIJA that was given to DVRPC for certain programming type projects. And that's where this money is from. Correct.
Right. Mostly. And it can be used for engineering as well as construction. And I would also add that there is typically a 20% local match, so there will be some requirement for the county to kick in capital.
Thanks, Bill.
Yeah.
All right, housing attainability. So you are all well aware that we are not the ones building the housing here in Montgomery County, but we do want to make sure that the Planning Commission is well positioned to provide resources to communities that want to work to increase attainability, as well as have the right messaging in place to get positive changes happening on a local level. So in 2023, like I'm saying, we were implementing change at the county and local level. We worked with places like North Wales to work on their zoning ordinance to allow for things like this accessory dwelling unit to be a permanent part of their zoning ordinance. We continued the implementation of Homes for All and completed work with a consultant on a messaging and branding strategy. And we also worked on our usual annual updates and reports, data and statistics to make sure that we have accurate information to share with people on construction trends and housing prices. In 2024, we will work on a Homes for All relaunch and work on ongoing public education. We are in the very beginning stages of planning for a housing summit to be held hopefully this spring, to provide information to developers, municipalities, and any other interested parties on how we can have more housing attainability for people who want to work here and live here. We are also working on a housing resource center that we will have on our website with statistics and information for people to access. And this is always on our work plan, but I really do hope that we can finish our characteristics of new housing study this year. It is the document that we have been using for the last decade plus to have information on things like how many school children we anticipate coming out of different types of housing units. We use it all the time. Other people apparently use it all the time too. I get questions on when we are going to update it, and hopefully the answer is 2024. That is my quick summary of housing attainability, and I'm gonna hand things back to Bill.
I have a question.
Yes.
Is anybody else hot?
Yes, yes.
I thought it was me.
On it here.
And I'm comfortable for the first time, because I'm always breathing cold. But I know it's hot then. I know it's hot.
This is like the moderate, we extremes occur regularly in this building, unfortunately. 2024 goal to be fixed.
It's spring.
No,
Spring at the planning commission.
Figure out how it also cool off.
Yeah, I'll virtually take you outside to the county trail network. I'm not going to explain what that title slide means or what this section is, because it's pretty self-explanatory. Talking about the county trail network. Some of our top 3 achievements for 2023 include, as Ann mentioned, the completion of the Chester Valley Trail extension. 3.9 miles, about $17 million to construct, very expensive, about $4.3 million per mile. But when you consider the area, that's why. Huge gap closure in the trail system, heavily used and very popular.
I'm doing a beer and bike trip.
Are you?
Where's our invitation?
I'm looking to be the same.
It's online.
You're hosting this?
Are you wearing your new
My
helmet?
wife volunteered me. I can't remember the last time my wife rode a bike, so I'm not sure how.
What is it for?
I don't know. Bikes
For
and
beer.
Is there an organization behind it? Like,
But I'm hoping it's the bikes first and the beer later, because like, you know.
Yeah, I don't
There seems to be a liability issue with the beer.
You're biking
first.
and beering at the same time, please.
Yeah, we don't encourage that, but it sounds fun. Secondly, I just wanted to point out that the Schuylkill River Trail 422 connector, this is in Lower Pottsgrove. It's only about 3/4 of a mile, but it's huge because it's closing the gap in the Schuylkill River Trail. Final segment of the SRT in Montgomery County. Engineering was completed in 2023, and we plan to move into construction this year after we work out some final details that we're dealing with right now, but we're getting very close. And then lastly,
Completion date on this,
on what?
on the connector being.
2024 fall, yeah. Well, it depends on when we start.
I want to start the party planning now.
So do I. We're getting close. I'll keep you posted. We're
Okay.
dealing with some last minute issues that we'll work through, but stay tuned.
Strong arm, Bill.
Strong, yeah,
Strong arm.
yeah, Yeah.
Beer's incentive.
absolutely.
Beer.
Yeah, I like all those things. And then lastly, the Springfield Township Trails and Connectivity Plan was completed this year. This was part of our community assistance contract with Springfield Township. Hugely successful process, amazing public turnout, an excellent product. Springfield Township seems thrilled about it, and it was just a great outcome and effort on the part of the township as well as the county. Going into 2024, long-awaited Erdenheim Farm Cross County Trail and Wissahickon Trail project is anticipated to start construction. We're going through the final reviews of the legal documents right now. The engineering plans are complete. We hope to start in the Q3 of this year. This will be a $9.5 to $11 million project to construct and heavily anticipated, and I'll keep you posted, but we hope to start that in the middle of this year. Second project, this has been touched upon already by Ann in some of her sections about 2023, but the Trail Junction Center is continuing to move forward. We're working on architectural renovation plans for the building. Landscape architect is working on the site development plans. This will cost about $5.2 million right now to do all of the building and site work. We're awaiting word from the America 250 PA grant program. We put in an application for anywhere from $1 million to $2.5 million from that program, which would help fund the construction of both the site and the building. And we hope to start construction at some point this year. But again, we're going to have to see how the timing looks with this grant funding in order to get started with construction. But we do anticipate doing that this year, and it'll take about a year to do.
Placemaking.
Placemaking. Yeah, it's a great example of placemaking. Agreed. And then lastly, in the small but mighty category, we hope to construct the last 850 feet of the Pennypack Trail in Rockledge Borough. This is only a $250,000 project, but it is the final portion of the Pennypack Trail in Montgomery County. Philadelphia is currently constructing its Fox Chase Lorimer Trail, which will come to the Montgomery County border, and that's where our 850 feet of Pennypack Trail will meet it, and closing that really critical gap between the two counties and basically finish out the penny pack.
Where is this in Penny?
So this is the Philadelphia Montgomery County line.
Yeah.
Right here. This is Rockland Borough right here.
Where's the large bridge that goes over?
Right, well, there's a bridge right here. Like right up in here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and then it ends in the park. In
Yeah,
Rockledge.
right.
And you're gonna pick up from the park and hit into Philly.
And take it up to the city line, correct. So that'll happen probably this spring, summer.
Great.
That's all I got. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Bill. Good morning, board. In terms of the transportation system and its evolving nature, both in terms of what we can do to make it evolve and also to stay on top of trends. Our three achievements from 2023, the big one was getting out to construction after about 20 years on the Ridge Pike Project Section B. That was begun.
It's going.
It's going. You probably drove through it today. Dulcie knows it well. Yes, so our office actually took this over from Roads and Bridges about 10 years ago, and we were finally able to get out the door here. $39 million project, a big investment from the county. It's on the tip. This was big news for us in 2023.
I think on all the barriers, you should put a picture of Matt Protect and put an arrow that says he's to blame.
Yeah, Lauren, yeah, good morning.
Yeah, usually they put my face on those, so.
Well, why can't we have a QR code and say, come on, look at what's going, I always think of these transportation projects, so many times people are caught with such frustration. If there was a QR code, I said this back when Obama threw it, all the money and everybody was screaming because they couldn't get any place. Have a QR code and see what's going on here. It could have a comment section and that might be.
The only problem is we don't want them driving and scan the QR code at the same
But
time.
they're sitting still, that's the problem.
Touche. You've heard me say many times, in transportation, we play the long game. And so pretty much everything I'm going to talk to you about in the next couple of minutes is all things that have been percolating for years and finally have come to the surface and we're seeing the fruits of our labor. And the Eastern Montco Interchanges Group is one of those. That comes out of the interchange study that we did back in 2014. And finally, in the last couple of years, we've gotten a little bit of momentum. And so last year, 3 of our townships in the area there by Welsh Road and Willow Grove and Virginia Drive, they decided they would financially partner with the county to put up money every year for the next couple of years, hire an engineer and help us work on moving forward these things and advocate with the township. So that money is now in place and they're on board through legal documents. And then, of course, new bike lanes and showers. This is something Ann touched on briefly. The actual number, though, for everything that we got added is more like 12.5 miles of bike lanes. And that comes from a couple of different sources, some of which were things that we've been working on for 30 years, like 22600, and some of which were some initiatives in the last couple of years, working with our TMAs and having them work with our municipalities. So we actually saw a lot of things finally come to fruition. So in terms of our initiatives for 2024, the School River Passenger Rail Service and the SRPRA, as Ann and Scott mentioned, we got into the Carter ID program. So at some point here, the service development plan will be a big effort that will begin in 2024. This is a real thing now. I can't say that enough. This has gone from planning now to actual deep study, deep dive, and eventually in the next couple of years, preliminary engineering. It's a real thing. The second one is still the Montco Interchanges Group, because this is a year now that our consultant is going to be updating the numbers, come up with updated designs on the interchanges, and we're going to be working together to make a push with the Turnpike and PennDOT to talk about ways to actually fund some of these things and get some projects done and get some interchanges done. So last year was a big deal for this. This year is going to be a big deal for this too. And then lastly, electric vehicles planning is something that the transportation section and the environmental section have been working on together. And a lot of this year revolves around the NEVI program. It's another IIJA program, and there's a couple of different pots of NEVI money, but the one that's really moving is the one that Pennsylvania gets, and then they start getting applications from private developers and private property owners. And so one of the things that transportation and environmental sections have to do is go out to our communities, knock on some doors, talk to some property owners, and try to drum up some interest to apply, because those folks don't always know about the government programs. We are the sinew between the two different parts of the public and the private sector trying to make something work. So that's going to be a big effort this year. And hopefully we see some more building upon what we have seen already last year, which was a couple of Wawas at different parts of the county actually got NEVI money in the first round. And so this is the 1A round, PennDOT's calling it. But again, it's going to happen one more time, and we're starting to get a little bit of momentum there. So with that, I will kick it over to Pattie for planning technology.
So as you can see, we do a lot here. And so, but the planning technology expansion and tools is really how we collect that data, analyze that data, produce it, and put it into a document, present it, and engage others for that. So that's using GIS, our HTMLs, our social media. So again, and what we try to do is, in part, is our mission is to reach out to all people in many different ways so we can be inclusive about what we are doing. The 3 top achievements for 2023. So what you see on the left is North Wales story map. So as was mentioned in the past, North Wales went through a comprehensive plan or was going through rezoning. And this was an effort by, again, Tim Kenichi from the community planning section to make this a little more available to the public and what they were doing. It's easy for people to come to meetings and weigh in, but this has out there, people, whether they come to a meeting or not, can go on and understand for the story map what a comprehensive plan is, what the point of their zoning update was for, and it was a lot more of a transparent process. The New Hanover sidewalk analysis. So this was, again, an effort from New Hanover to find out where they had sidewalk and where they didn't. By identifying those gaps, work on their connectivity plan for the future. And then the third one there, Montco 2050 map resource. So Chloe presented all the stuff from a great session we had last month. All those background documents were shared with you, and I know you read it from beginning to end. But as part of that documentation is we have this hub, which is where we have everything. All the maps you saw in those documents are here, plus many, many more. And this is meant to be continually updated, or most of them are continually updated. And it's a resource online on our hub databases for people to be able to see what's happening with our comprehensive plan and in that process. So
Interactive, Pattie?
Sorry?
Are the maps interactive?
Yes.
Are they?
Yeah, so for the 3 initiatives for this sort of thing, for this particular plan technology and tools. So as you know, and the MPC requires that we review all subdivision and land developments that come through the door or come through in the county. And this is an effort on a regular basis. We reach out to our municipal partners, find out if we're doing this well, what we can update it for, and it's time for us to do that again. So that's what this is. We'll be reaching out to the municipal partners with a survey, finding out what is it we do well, what is it we could do better, and then take a look at our training manual, make sure that's up to date, not only for the new people to come in to understand what we're doing and what they have to do when they do a 247 review, but even people that are here doing them have done them for years. So that's what this is for. Then this is, this is the 3rd year that we've had this work program structured around focus areas. And we felt it was time for our website to reflect that. So this effort will be doing that. We'll be going through, we've started the process already, but now this year is the real push to make sure we get it out there and make it public. And again, it'll be structured around our work program items for the most part, and we'll just have a better and more fresh and updated look. And for the 3rd item, I'm going to leave it to Scott.
And the final item with web experiences, this is the Esri GIS product that is really becoming the de facto portal for putting projects in interactive maps and information and putting it all together in one place. We've done some of this with a couple projects, climate change, potential vulnerability analysis, as well as our TOD stuff. A former staff member was really kind of pioneered this for us. Is no longer here, but our Robert and Bill have taken training in the second half of 2023 and are anxious to put new projects into this avenue, as well as our new senior GIS coordinator, when that person comes on, is really looking at ways we can take the product we do and put it into a way that people can more easily use it, access it, learn from it, and all of that.
Do we have the software we need? I mean, so many times in the past I said, oh, can you do that? And I was told it's not in the budget yet.
Well, we have the software, yes. The ability for every staff member that would like to use it in different ways, that becomes a licensing issue. That is a challenge. And we're working toward the day where we're in the enterprise system and everybody has Arc Pro, which is the new one. But we're not there yet. And I think it's probably going to happen at the end of 24. But we're still trying to get as many people as we can able to use that. But it is a frustration. Okay, we are behind time, so I'm gonna rush pretty quick through the rest. The signature initiatives, as I mentioned, go outside the focus topics. The comprehensive plan is where it starts. In addition to the annual implementation report you saw today, we also run the grant programs, both Montco 2040 and the possible transportation grant program continuing. into 2050, the trend reports we did in 23, vision plan development is now really what's going to occupy much of 24 and into 25 with the new steering committee and continue to work with this board as well as public outreach, which will be a huge component. We have a new consultant coming on board to assist with that in the coming months. Leading to some other aspects helmed by actual boards that exist with open space and farmland preservation. These activities, on a monthly basis, work on finding new opportunities, working with municipalities who might want to tap into the financial resources the county has when appropriate. One thing I'll just note is we hope to, in this coming year, establish a more public-facing program towards that end and towards open space. Not an increase in capital budget monies, but using the monies we have to make it more equitable, make it more accessible, and find out what projects might be out there at the municipal level that might serve the interests of the county as well as the municipalities trying to do it. Not on this slide is the MCTA, our third or fourth board, however you want to count them up. They're probably the most active month to month, always looking at dealing with properties that might go into road projects as well as trail projects. And a lot of the technical side of our work gets accomplished through that. So I want to definitely give them credit. And then finally, with planning education, the Planning Smarter series, which is something we do every year. We're trying to keep the reins in on this. The comprehensive plan is going to take up a lot of effort and resource and also be an educational program. We will still be participating with the 4 state planning courses, which some of our senior staff are instructors as well as our board chair. And that has been a great way to work with our future leaders and current leaders at the local level and teach them about planning. Our big event that we hope to have or plan to have probably in the fall will be an active transportation event. We're doing plans in Lower Merion, Narberth, and Lansdale right now. Active transportation, you might just simply think of it as bike and pedestrian planning, but it really takes it to the next level and thinks of it in terms of how does that work as transportation? How do people use those multi-mode those modes to get to work, to shopping in different ways, and also make it safe to do so. And an affordable housing summit, as Ann mentioned, won't be a Planning Smarter branded by itself. There'll be more homes for all countywide and other county partners. But I think it fits into the mission of the Planning Smarter series as well. And then we're looking at a webinar that might come in as well. We haven't decided on the ultimate topic. It could be an offshoot of affordable housing, a more specific dive into that. Then our awards program in the fall, as always, and the 2024 APA-PA conference in Erie. We'll have to make the effort to get a few people up there, but I'm really impressed with the amount of participation that we've put into our conferences the last couple of years. And I think it shows in both what looking statewide at how people view us and what we have to offer our colleagues. The core functions, this is just key to note. There's a whole chapter on these. These are our more cyclical or everyday activities, but they're so important. A lot of what's in our mission gets done through these, starting with the 247 reviews that we write. We put a lot of pride in and also a lot of importance in, because that's where decisions get made. That's where we make our comments and hopefully get the ears to listen and make everything as good as it can be. A lot of our other programs are also wrapped into these, things like the recycling program, household hazardous waste, the work that our administration team does to keep up county protocols that are needed for different programs, reporting elements, as well as delivery to the public, graphic design folks, communications, and GIS. All of these are they're consolidated into a table. Their importance can't be overstated. And then finally, I will let Eric be our last commenter on the community planning program.
Get through this. So again, for going into 2024, we will have 34 municipal planning assistance contracts. We do have 4 regional planning commissions. And interestingly enough, there's 24 municipalities in Montgomery County that are part of those regional planning commissions. We have 2 more in Chester County in the Pottstown region. Of those 24, we have planning assistance contracts, regular municipal planning assistance contracts with 15 of them. So there's a lot of overlap there, but we do have 9 additional communities that we have a relationship with through regional planning that we don't have through the 34 municipal contracts. Through those 38 contracts, we're pretty much at capacity. We've had this discussion ongoing in a number of years. I have had some recent discussions, some very good discussions with one municipality, hoping to potentially sign a contract with them. And I've had some other entrees from several other communities as well. So we'll see about staffing and what we may need to do about that moving forward, but that's gonna be a big goal for this year. Again, meeting the goals of the county and the communities. This is really a two-way street, and the county commissioners, when they started the program back in 1970, over 50 years ago, sort of their two primary principles were making sure that there was good planning that was affordable and accessible to every community in Montgomery County. And so that's a really important principle. From the other side of it, I think they recognize that this is a commonwealth, and Dulcie touched on this earlier. We are only a sum of our parts. And each municipality has to provide for, being a great place to live, work, and play if the county is going to meet its goals and be a great place to live, work, and play. So I think that's really important to remember. And then again, as Dulcie touched on, we're at the table in each of those 34 municipalities, and we have a real collaborative relationship with them, which really provides an invaluable connection to those communities. I think it well worth the 50% subsidy that the county puts into that. Highlighting some of the big projects from 2023, and you can look at each of and please do look at all of the work that's gone into each of the individual communities. We have the 10 community planners, the amount of work that they kick out with the assistance of design and transportation and environmental and open space is astounding. And so please look over those individual summaries, because I'm not going to be able to highlight them all here, and I don't want to leave anybody out, but they all do some incredible work. Some of these have already been mentioned. Lower Providence Comp Plan was adopted last year. We did an East Greenville design guidelines for their Main Street. The Trail and Community Connections Plan in Springfield was a great collaboration. We completed a comprehensive plan update for the Upper Perk. We've redone the zoning for North Wales. And of course, the Park to Perkiomen Trail was completed and opened in 2023 in Upper Salford Township. We have a lot of work on tap for 2024. Comprehensive plans are going to be the real project for the year in a lot of communities. We're hopefully going to be completing comprehensive plans for Abington, Cheltenham, Lower Green, Horsham, West Norton, the Indian Valley region, Central Park region, and the Pottstown region. We'll be getting started this year, might not finish until 2025. So working on a lot of great comprehensive plans. We're going to be starting a comprehensive plan for Ambler. We're doing active transportation plans, I said, for Lower Merion, Narberth, and Lansdale. Completing zoning updates for Douglas, Bridgeport, Lower Salford, and Horsham, subdivision land development ordinance updates for Jenkintown and East Greenville. So a lot of incredible work, which I think goes into making all of these communities better places, to live, work, and play, which again benefits the county not only directly, but every municipality drives through, goes to parks, interacts with every community around them. So it's great for all of us that we're able to have that and make that contribution to those communities.
Thanks, Eric. And so the very final word, again, this represents a lot of activity. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Two vacancies in your.
Currently 2 vacancies. We're going to be making an offer today to hopefully fill one of them, and we have several interviews this week
For the second, so have the budget to fill those 2 this year.
They're in the budget for this year, yes, and so we're hoping to fill them hopefully the first quarter.
So it's a lot of work, and we recognize with the new administration, there may be things that aren't identified yet that may come up through the course of the year, and always that can happen anytime. But that may have an impact. And there's some things that we couldn't even put into the work program so much as where they're at. Things like working with the administration on the Erie Street prison preservation, and we're now in a key role with the RFI process on that, and spending some effort on that. White Marsh floodplain, which was mentioned, getting transportation funding, all these things that are part of our goals. So things may shift, but we're ready to adapt when needed.
So comments or questions for staff?
For me, this is just an awesome presentation to see where this whole format has gone in the past couple of years since we started the conversations. I mean, what I appreciate, first of all, beyond all the amount of work that everybody does, I appreciate the consistency of the way that it's presented so that you can kind of mentally compare how things are happening in different parts of the plan. But I also appreciate the progression of how things are being done, being moved aside and then moved on to other consistently appropriate projects within the actual division. So kudos to you and the team. Very nice. Thank you.
And you guys, how you got this so concise, your 3 points, I know it took a lot of work and I really commend you.
There were a few threats made.
It was real, I mean, I remember last year.
Yeah.
This, I mean, kudos.
Anybody else? I just, you know, I guess most of my questions during the presentation, so, but yeah, I mean, I say the same thing. A lot of stuff ahead of us and exciting adventure, and hopefully we can find a way to collaboratively work with the board, can collaboratively work with staff on some of these initiatives, so. Be great, hopefully we can implement that this year and really get it into it, so.
Just a quick question. I did go through it really, really finely and made lots of small comments for a little bit of clarification, a couple little typos.
Please.
Okay.
Yeah, well, okay, I wanna wrap it up and get it out there by the end of this week and actually give it to our commissioners and let them see.
That long.
all
It's
the
not
work.
huge rewrites, but it's still.
Thank you, Delcy. That's,
Yep.
appreciate that.
I did that as well. I didn't know when to talk about that.
Thank
but,
Yeah, if you want to share your document, and we can get it back to you.
Yeah, that's all. Pink is me.
Do we need to,
Barbie
do
here.
we need board action on this?
I don't think we need action. I guess I would like to say endorsed. I'm happy to say approved if you want to make a on the fly motion.
Yeah, because it talks about, so it does say for board approval.
Okay, yes, please, if you don't.
Do I have a motion to approve the work program as presented and with the edits or suggestions that are in board members reviews.
Second.
We can second, or any comments or questions regarding the motion? From anybody? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Right.
Scott, this is going out to the general public, right?
Yeah, we'll post on our website and we'll do some social media.
One thing, since it's going out to the general public, maybe in the back you have the various. you know,
Acronyms. The code book.
Right.
That's what
Maybe what you can do is you can put that in the beginning of the document and say, you know, for clarification of what these acronyms are, please see appendix A.
Yeah.
Because that was the questions that I
Okay.
had.
Yeah, we should be able to do something like that.
So,
Great. And thanks to the staff, all the staff online. They make it, I don't know.
Great job.
So director's report,
Yep.
that was it.
I got a short one.
So how much more do you have to say?
Really, there's not much. The staff news, 5 open positions, but on all 5 of those, I can say it's starting to loosen the jam. We have some good candidates. Hopefully some offers will be accepted even as early as this week. It's been tough, but I'm.
What do we do with the extra money? Do we
I was just thinking the same.
buy
thing.
lunches.
Yeah, what are we doing with the extra finances?
It's in our back pocket. I'm not shy to mention if we're under budget on something, if we're.
Just make sure we don't lose it.
Yeah, that's what I'm.
Right, the positions themselves, yes, that is always front and center of my business. Swearing in ceremony was great. I don't know if anyone made it out for the new commissioners. Glad it was a very inspiring moment. It's a packed house. They moved it 3 times at the community college into bigger rooms. All 3 commissioners that talked about some of their pet projects, their initiatives, what they want to see done. And there's a lot of overlap, which is the exciting part. I think it's gonna be kind of a bit of a different atmosphere than what we've been accustomed to. But also a lot of those overlap with our goals too, so I'm excited about that as well. It's gone from anxiousness, new change, getting through that to opportunity and working with people.
And
So,
whatever we can do as individuals to connect with the new commissioners, I think would be great.
yes, yeah, certainly. SRPRA was mentioned, quarter ID accepted, mentioned last month, so that's good. Open space updates, the Camp Laughing Waters was a huge one you heard about. Another one that happened this past month was the Highlands Historical Society. This was in our monthly newsletter, if you saw it. And that one is in White Marsh. It's additional 19 acres of publicly accessible open space, which adds on to a 40-acre primary property along Sheaf Lane and Skipback Pike owned by the Highlands Society. We contributed 500,000. White Marsh had 6 million, and a lot of private donations as well. But this will facilitate direct public access between the Highlands primary parcel as well as the Wissahickon Trails, 108-acre Willow Lake Farm, which is adjacent to the north. And as a final note, the alternative, if this hadn't been done, was a land development that would put a lot more density in a place that wasn't really fit for it. And this is a win for both natural environment conservation as well as public space and access and recreation.
Important, White Marsh has an earned income tax.
Yes, that does help. And that's also, that was added onto the DVRC work program for getting more of that and having them help us. Other than that, we have launched the Montco 2040 grant program. Applications are being accepted with a deadline of March 1st for all municipal governments. And with that newest administration, there is a transition team from Commissioner Winder and Commissioner Makija called Moving Montco Forward. Just letting you know, we've been fortunate. Some committee members on those have reached out to us to get our feedback and help them understand, you know, what the county does good, what we want to do better, what we could use help with. So we're having some of those conversations this week with some of those members, and that's great. And then finally, there was a public ribbon cutting of the Royersford Trestle Bridge last week. It was a fantastic event, weather and just people all excited, all out there. The Trestle Bridge connects the Schuylkill River Trail on the other side of the river in Chester County, in Spring City, to the Riverfront Trail that Royersford did with county assistance and Montco 2040 assistance. The only thing missing from that whole piece is the private development, mixed-use development that is still scheduled to come in on that parcel next to the Veterans Memorial Park from Lewis Development, who owns and operates the existing businesses to the
Very
west.
interesting what's going on even in that little.
Yeah, if you get a chance, it's a beautiful bridge, and we saw it when it came in back in 2020. I don't know if any of you were on that committee and remember, but seeing the pictures then and thinking,
Before and
wow.
after is so great.
There was some doubt in my mind how
Yeah.
this is done, but seeing it is inspiring, so
Yeah.
encourage you to get out there. That's it.
Are there any other comments or questions before we adjourn? Okay. Motion to adjourn? Motion. So moved. All those in favor? Aye. Okay.